Hi, it's Susan from Worldpeacefull. And I was just about to leave the house, and the feeling that love is the answer came to me. And I suddenly felt to do a video, which I'm going to do right now. Love is my favourite subject, to be honest. And I feel love is a gift that's been given to all of us. When you truly can love unconditionally, when you can love those who you perceive as your enemy, not that I think there is any, but let's just say for argument's sake, a dynamic is set up and there's opposition. Often people translate that into an enemy, someone that you don't like, someone that offends you, someone who is disrespectful, a person who makes you uncomfortable. And from this experience is the birth of division. We live in a duality that oscillates between two extremes. One is love on the one side and hatred is on the other. Every single human being has experienced the myriad of emotions that oscillate from intense love to intense hatred. For the most part, we're pretty much tracking in the middle, where we feel a sensibility towards others, a sense of harmony. They walk past us, we walk past them. These days, increasingly, people are on their phones, so they may not be feeling anything. If they're unplugged, they'll have more contact with their emotional state. Although their emotional state might be being evoked by what they're listening to, if it's music in particular. So they might be attempting to attain a peaceful state by plugging in from a world that they find to be quite frightening, or they sense some anxiety. And of course, anxiety is fear. Anxiety is a feeling that you could panic, you feel uncomfortable, you feel scared, you don't feel accepted. Stress can create anxiety in people, and stress is typically a response to some form of threat that maybe you mightn't be able to accomplish what you think you're to accomplish, or it could be trying to do too much, and the fear of not being able to do it is what creates the anxiety. Or it could be something within yourself that you're frightened to face and you feel anxious if you're in a situation. So our emotions are very intense, and people do on the whole try to ignore them or deny them or push them down because they don't like the uncomfortable feelings. We all sort of crave for the really positive feelings. We all want to be loved. We want to be accepted. We want to belong. We want to feel human, our compassion towards one another. We want to feel hope. There's something to look forward to. And at times we might feel on the other side of that jealous. We might feel angry. We might feel confronted. We might be sitting in judgment of some people because they're not like us, or they're saying things that we think are wrong. We might be coming from a very strong sense of right versus wrong. So those divisions can really create polarities where it's us against them. We're good, they're not. And the human condition exists in this duality that oscillates between intense love, which is absolute devotion, to intense hatred, which is the complete absence of love. There are other labels for that, which I won't use. The absence of love is a very dark place. And I feel compassion for those who live in that place. But either side anchors a reality that we all live in, And we are moving between these contrasting emotions. So from fear, we can confront our fear to overcome it by reframing the way we see fear. Some have called it false evidence appearing real. Fear is a psychological response, fight or flight can come out of that. So someone can come out fighting in order to protect themselves or to ward off that other. Flight is to simply run. You're in danger and you're going to run. So there are a lot of sort of mechanisms within us that, in a way, navigate our environment that's under constant change. We live in constant change. We ourselves are in constant change. You know, the cells of the body, they replace themselves. You know, our hair falls out, it grows. Change is life, in truth. Nothing stays the same and no one is the same. We're all unique. Every animal is unique. Animals feel emotions too. You can see that when you get close to dogs. You know, you can see that they really have intense emotions and they really love you. They're a very good example of unconditional love. And for me, unconditional love is the highest positive emotion. I want to talk about love because it is really my favourite subject and I experience it all the time. And this is unconditional love that I'm experiencing, where I can love without conditions. I might go into negative emotion. I might temporarily move into judgment. But I typically pull myself out of those states, those negative states, recognizing that every single person is on a path that I don't know. Maybe someone has to go through, you know, intense poverty. Maybe someone has to go through a marriage breakup. You know, maybe a person has to lose their job in order to find out something about themselves. So from what we perceive as a terrible thing, a wonderful thing can emerge in that a new path opens up for us. It takes us down another pathway that was totally unexpected. If I turn to my own life, I've, you know, had to navigate just like everybody else. And, you know, I've started off in life, you know, taking work, going to work. I remember, you know, some of my earliest work was actually typing. And I can remember a person who was my supervisor, I still remember her, who was very critical of me because I made some mistakes. I have a little bit of dyslexia and she didn't know that. But when I was typing, I got words back to front. Sometimes I can make mistakes when I'm typing because I have that dyslexia, which tends to change what I'm seeing. It's very good for poetry, but it has its moments. But anyway, I remember her saying to me that I would never amount to anything, which was a very unkind thing to say because I'd made mistakes typing. But I do remember at the time thinking, how can you make an assessment of my entire life on the basis of getting a few things wrong? You know, I've had other people say negative things to me over the years, and I've had to sit back and decide who I am in relationship to that. Do I think that's true? And I have to say, up until about 30, I didn't think I was intelligent. I used to get my words back to front. Again, dyslexia. But I took myself through university, which was a massive, what could I say? It was probably the greatest experience of my life was to go through university. As I came from a space of no reading, I didn't read a book until I was 17. I wasn't articulate back then. I used to get, as I said, my words used to get mixed up. I lacked confidence. I didn't think I was intelligent because I was told I wasn't. And so I took myself through an economics degree of all things and marketing because I was good at creativity. And I worked really, really hard. I treated it like a job and went without, because when you're a university student, you just struggle by. I had a partner at the time, and he was also doing some studying in engineering, and we were very happy. University was a bit lonely because I was a mature age student, a bit older than the rest. But I had an inquiring mind and was very interested in the world. I was very interested in how it worked. And I just followed that thread, and it was really, really hard work. I managed to achieve my goal, which was to get a degree. And I can remember I used to ride a motorbike as well. I can remember coming out to get my degree from the university administration. I didn't go to the graduation ceremony. For me, the graduation was going to admin, and they passed me the degree. And the joy I felt was indescribable. I proved to myself that I was intelligent. I proved to myself that even though I hadn't read a book until I was 17, I was able to come to terms with reading. I excelled in areas that I didn't think I had the ability to excel. And I realised that I was intelligent. It took me 3 years to convince myself that I was. So why am I sharing this? I'm sharing it because the great adversity in life is the overcoming of what we believe about ourselves. And a lack of love can render a person believing they're not good enough, render a person believing they're not intelligent, they're not worthy, they don't belong. And through that was probably, I think, one of my greatest experiences. And I mean, I've done quite a few now. But that for me was really the moment that I had to accept that I was intelligent. And that took me that long to convince myself, because I had really had a deep programming that I wasn't. My family certainly didn't have high expectations of me either. But I'm so glad that I had the courage to enroll and to go through that degree. And I really learned a lot. I learned that I don't know a lot. Was probably a primary teaching coming out of university, that there are books on all sorts of subjects. I learned how to research properly without just believing everything I hear. I learned to put things under the spotlight of scrutiny, to critically think, is that true? Who's saying what? How do we know that that's true? What do others think about that? What do I think about that? I had to learn how to argue for and against various topics. So it made you question. And that probably is the great strength of education, is the learning to question everything. To look at our historical pathway, how we came to where we are today. To understand the varying mindsets, the behavioural aspects of how we manage one another, how we lead, how we follow, who we are. All these things were explored through university, interestingly enough. So how does that all connect to love? Love was the possibility that opened the door for me to consider the possibility that I was intelligent. Of course, love has come to me in so many ways now, and I'm feeling it now as I'm speaking. It's to look into your own eyes. So I'm just going to move a bit closer and look into my own eyes. What I learned, and it took me a long time, was to look into my own eyes and love myself. And it's what I would encourage everyone to do, is to look into your own eyes and love yourself and say to yourself, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Suddenly your name falls away. Who am I? Who is the I? What is the ego? What is it that needs to defend oneself? After university, I moved to England for a couple of years, and that was when I really started to awaken to myself. I wrote a lot of diaries, and I was exploring everything. I was looking at architecture, I was comparing it to modernity, ancient. I was looking at the churches. What was this kingdom of God they were all talking about? I explored philosophy, went into a philosophy course and found an ancient Chinese philosopher, Lao Tzu. He was the awakening for me of the universe or universal law. I also explored the I Ching. My partner was actually into that at the time, and he was the one that inspired me to have a look at it and learn from ancient Chinese philosophy, which was very wise, and they had a lot of ordering. I felt that the I Ching was a very good book to explore, actually, and if I'd had the inkling, I probably would have done a much deeper analysis of the I Ching, as it really did look at social order. It was about harmony, trying to establish harmony through social relationships. There was also a wisdom associated with it. The I Ching, typically they used yarrow sticks in ancient China, and they threw them as a form of divination, and they would get answers, and the I Ching would provide an answer to a question. So what is the wisest course of action? Of course, wisdom comes from love. What is the wisest course of action? The advice was never about violence. The advice was along the lines of whether you cross the great stream or not. It used trigrams, and they formulated hexagrams, which was, trigrams were 3 lines, and the hexagrams were 6. And you could, depending on how you threw those sticks, the way they fell, it very much was formulating the yin and the yang of it. It's very interesting. And the yin and the yang, if anyone explores that, is all about harmony. Harmony has emerged from these ancient roots. And of course, if you look at the symbol of harmony, the yin and the yang, it's the dark and the light. It's a circle. And you'll see the eye of, say, for example, it looks like 2 fishes, I'll put it that way, spinning. And there's a white and a black fish. I'll put it like that, if I may. And in the black fish, there's a white eye, and the white fish, there's a black eye. And it's like as life changes, as it goes from dark to light, somewhat of the dark element comes into the light. It can be up or down. It can be feminine, masculine. It's really about the dynamic of change. The I Ching was called the Book of Changes. It's about how we flow with change. I was going to use the word manage, but I just felt inspired to say the word flow, because flow is really the basis of these philosophies. As we flow through life, we're not coming up against it really hard. We're not fighting life, because all the negative discord is coming from the fighting against life. And there is a futility in that fight, because life has its own natural rhythm, its own natural order, if I can even use that word. The symmetrical, geometric patterns in life that are all based on balance. That's why I started off with, peace is balance. Love is peace. I just want to go still for a moment, because that's another way of accessing love and peace. The word acceptance comes up for me. What I see, when you love, you're more accepting. Peace is like a kind of a resting space as well, although you can be active in a state of peace. I know as when I was a clown, a world peace clown, when I clowned with the children or I clowned out in the streets, I was very, very active. And I was juggling and I was smiling and waving and having fun with everyone, loving everyone. And I really was. I truly loved everybody. That's why I have a universal feeling for loving everyone. So when I was on the streets, there was a still point within me because I had no fear in me. I looked at everyone and all I really was doing was, creating the opportunity to connect and to shine light and love into their eyes so that they could see their own beauty was what I was trying to do. The love I'm feeling at the moment is really, really strong. I'm just sharing this with you because my greatest moments, I may cry. I'm known to because my emotions are very connected. So I don't suppress my emotions. I feel them because I'm human. And the desire to cry is because of the joy that I've experienced giving love to other people unconditionally. This is the feeling of it. I'll allow it to come because I'm here to share love with you, the real love. This is the love of humanity that I feel right now. I'm just going to let it flow. This is not pain that I'm experiencing. It's the most intense love. There's a feeling of humility in this that I feel. I really feel deeply for the people. This is not sadness. I just remind you, it's not sadness that I'm experiencing. It's grace. And it's because I'm remembering the people. I'm remembering my connection to the other, who is an aspect of myself. When you go into that feeling of love, you become one with everyone. It doesn't matter who they are. They can be a man, a woman, a child. They could be Indian. They could be Arab. They could be Jewish. They could be American. They could be English. They could be European. They could be from China, from Russia. I see none of that when I'm clowning on the street. I don't see their nationality because I see the humanity in them. It is so incredibly beautiful when you connect with other human beings in a way that's very innocent, where there's no, I don't have an agenda. I'm not trying to get anything from them. I'm not doing it for money. I did it because I love people so much, and I was so amazed at the freedom I felt when love was the place from which I was coming. And you feel lightness too. You feel really, really light, like a feather, like there's no weight on your shoulders. I really noticed that when I reflected on being a clown, and then when I sat down, I thought there's no weight on my shoulders. I'm actually very free, carefree. Carefree is the right word. And when you see, I can feel it again. It's when you go and hug everyone. It is the most, it's like the child who goes and hugs everyone who knows nothing, who just loves everyone. Children are like this naturally. That's why they often say, be like the little child. They're quite right. The clown for me was very much the ability, it was a miracle that I was able to access the child within me as a clown. And whenever I connected with children, we were equal. I saw them as my friend, and some of the kids, when I was dressed as a clown, they held my hand. but it was as an equal we held hands. I wasn't the parent, I was the clown, and the children saw me as their friend, and I saw them as mine because I was in a state of innocence. I loved everybody. You know, I loved the old man who's on the street, who's homeless. I loved the business executive who walked past and who smiled at me. I met an undercover policeman, I remember, in Canberra when I was clowning amongst a group of people who were celebrating the environment. I think it was World Environment Day or something. I loved him. I remember clowning in, funnily enough, Rayong, which is in southern Thailand. I went to a HIV clinic with Rotary, and I dressed as a clown, and I clowned with the children who had HIV as well. And the others were fearful of touching them because they were frightened of contracting HIV, and I decided to clown to prove to them that you could touch them and love them, because they get very isolated in their communities. They get alienated. So I remember clowning with them, and then I went to the hospice. They had a 40-bed unit there, and myself and a Sri Lankan clown, he was my Eastern counterpart. He and I clowned with them, and he played the drum, and I juggled, and I had a twirling ribbon. I also had bubbles. And the love between, I remember a woman who was dying. She was very, very skinny. And I saw her spirit. I saw, you know, she had a cheeky look in her eye. And she was close to death, to be honest. She wasn't long for the world. But when I twirled my twirly thing and I flicked it towards her, she grabbed it and we did a tug of war together. And I just remember her cheeky smile. She was very beautiful. See, when you're in a state of purely loving others, there's no judgment there. That's why in some of the faiths they've said, judge not. And you can only be in that state when you truly, truly love. And you know that you're not in a space of love as when you're sitting in judgment. It's very hard to attain a state like this. As a clown, it's easy, and I find throughout the whole process of clowning, I'm in a state of complete love of everyone. And I have endless energy. I find I can clown for 4 hours and where's the time gone? And I feel so complete within myself when I finished clowning, because all I was doing was giving love and hugging everyone and playing and mucking around, you know, chases. I used to do chases as well with the kids. That's why I brought the clowning into schools. You know, when I was teaching peace as a clown, it was the perfect character. I was a peace clown. I'm a jester is my archetype. And the jesters are quizzical and curious, and, you know, we do speak the truth to power. This is true. It's in the archetype, if you like, of that. Because if I don't speak the truth to them, who is going to? And there's a deep love behind it, because I know that they don't know, or I feel inspired to share what I do know. And that does come from love. Because ultimately I'm looking at the harmony for all of us. We all have to live together. I care about what happens to everyone, you know. And people might find that hard to believe, like, how can you care? I can, and even when people don't care about me, I can still care. I have the capacity to be unconditional in that love, because I believe everyone is worthy. That's why when I became homeless, I'm starting to speak more about my homelessness to others without any, it's almost like saying I'm a market analyst. It's got the same feeling around it now. I don't care anymore how I'm seen. That's good. That means I'm making peace with it. Because it's not a shame that you don't have a home. It's just a reality. It's a fact. You don't have a home. Although I'm staying here at this place, this is a friend's house, but I only stay in between house sits when I haven't got anywhere to go. I come here. And her love, and she's a very loving person, unconditional love. She's also a person who's dedicated to love like I am. And so I'm never criticised. I'm never judged. She gives all she has. She never asks for anything. I try to offer what I have, but she doesn't accept it. And that's because she's not in fear of not enough. She's abundant. See, this is the true growth. This is the true abundance. You know, in economics, we call it economic growth when we think there's abundance coming through the money system. But the abundance I'm learning about is human generosity, human kindness, the empathy to even consider asking someone, do you need anything? Are you okay? Or sharing something with someone. These are all emanations of love. I've loved so many people. I've loved thousands and thousands of people. And all I can say is that this was the tapping into the real beauty that exists within myself. Because life is the mirror. When you can look at the world and love it as it is, and even those who don't smile and, you know, you could say this is a hard world. I don't. I see them as afraid. So because I'm experiencing love inside myself that's unconditional, I don't need people to turn up in a way that makes me happy. I'm in a space where I'm here to give. I'll give you an example. I was at a university yesterday and I was just reading quietly, and some young people, some students came, and they were actors, and they were, you know, being directed by one of them on how to act, and it was very interesting. I saw this old man, and I've seen him before. This old man, he comes in and he digs through the bins. He's looking for food, and he's talking to himself. I think he's probably an old professor who's been around the campus for a long time. And I looked very deeply at him, and I was hoping to catch his eye because I was going to smile at him. Because I was contemplating, do I say something to him like, you know, do you need anything? But instead I went with the flow and just allowed life to unfold. Because he's not looking skinny, and I can see he's getting enough to eat. He had clothes, he was warm, he may well live on the campus. I'd say he does. Anyway, he walked away, and I just suddenly decided to go and talk to the young people because they were actors. And I said to them, did you notice the old man that was going through the bins and he's just left this room? Did you notice? And they were kind of shocked at me coming into their space and putting this to them. And they said, no. I said, you are actors. I said, I've travelled the world as a world peace clown. And I said, when you're an actor, you notice, you've got to notice the world around you because you're studying it in order to act your part. You have to know the human condition. You have to be very, very observant of life because life is the stage. And to be a great actor, you have to notice your world. And they were silent. And then I said, you know, I wish you all the best in what you're doing. And I went and sat down. And they were very quiet. They sort of talked more quietly, funnily enough, after that, because I had surprised them. And then one of them came up to me. This is the guy who was directing the group. He came up to me as they were leaving. And he said, thank you for talking to us. He said, I really felt your words and the way that you conveyed the old man and were able to link it to acting. I could see he was deeply affected. Now, what made me go up and talk to him was love. Love of them and love of the old man. Silence is fear. Now, in the world we're in, I'm noticing the young people are plugging in. They're not even noticing people around them. That person could be in trouble. They're not even smiling, so the connection's not even being made. So if an event happened, let's say someone got attacked, no one would know because they're not looking at each other. They don't know each other. A whole universe opens up when you approach someone and start dialogue. When you're brave enough to have a conversation. Love is the one who approaches to have that conversation. Love took me around the world. I remember suddenly thinking to myself, I'm a world peace clown, I need to travel the world. I had no money. The money came through a one-off. It was a one-off project that I did. Outside of that, I had nothing, and it was just a miracle that opportunity came. And I knew when the opportunity came that I was to travel the world. I knew. You can't say that you're a world peace clown unless you know the world. And so I embarked on a 20-country world trip, and I made a decision that every country was my country. The world was my world. And as I flew into every country, I looked at the environment from the sky. I was looking at human impact. I also visited sacred sites because I was curious. There's been deep spirituality on the planet. People have left behind messages. They've left behind customs, cultures, spiritual traditions in their attempt to know who they are, in their attempt to know what love is. People can put it into the form of a deity. They can call it a god. They can call it medicine. If you're an Indian, Great Spirit. If you're an environmentalist, you'll see it in nature. You'll see it in the genetic blueprints in nature. If you're a biologist, you'll see it in that way. Scientists can see the brilliance of nature and know that there's an intelligent design there. I don't think it really matters whether people believe in a higher power or not. What's most important is to know that love is the answer. And what that really truly means is when you're in a situation of conflict, and all conflict is or confusion is you're stuck between fear and love and you don't know which way to go. That's why you're feeling confused. When you're in a state of love, there's no confusion. The confusion goes. When you're in a state of peace, there's nothing to fight. You realize that you're only fighting yourself. That's why I talk about the wars and stuff. It's like we haven't come into a sufficient understanding that these are wars of our own making, and we can use all forms of justification why we should harm another, but ultimately we harm ourselves. And I know that because I met soldiers who told me they were suffering. And they suffered because they'd harmed someone. It wasn't their nature to do it. They have to be trained to do it. It's not natural. When it comes naturally, you know it's innate. It's part of who you are. It's your natural state. I'm living a life where I'm returning to my natural state of well-being. And it has meant I've had to deal with what a Jungian perspective would be, is deal with the shadow side, which is where all our fears are. The ego is part of the shadow. The ego is all about I'm better than you. The ego is about being seen to be successful, being seen to be in control, being seen to be the best. This is all ego. This is all part of the human condition. But once all that's said and done, and you get to another part of your life, which is where I'm at, I'm 54. I'm at the other end of life now. and I'm coming to deeper and deeper states of peace. I still have stress and I still have worries about things, but I'm teaching myself that there's nothing to fear but fear itself, and that love really is the reality, is truly love. The real world is truly love. And I know this for truth. When I travelled Australia by myself, there was fear around the decision that I made to travel 10,000 kilometres with a car that I couldn't get. I had very little money, as usual, which is good, because that's how you can see if you're looked after or not. If people aren't looking after you, you have to have faith in something. And that's why these spiritual traditions arose, was because people were undergoing great hardship, and they had to go deep within themselves to find some form of strength. So I remember making the decision. I knew I had about a month's window. I was going to do an environmental degree at Griffith Uni, and then I changed my mind. I got inspired, actually, to go around Australia. So I did. I was donated. That's right, I went down to a early childhood centre at Queensland University of Queensland, it's called. QUT. No, it wasn't QUT. It was the University of Queensland. And I went and saw the Rotary department that was there as well. It's for the Peace Fellows like myself. I met a few Peace Fellows whilst I was there, and the director. But nearby there was a early childhood centre, and I just felt to go there, and I did. And I met the manager, told him I was a World Peace clown, and he said he'd always loved clowns. Thank goodness. There's still people that love us. And I said I'd like to clown with the children, and he agreed. And I got paid for it, which was wonderful, and that money was really helpful. And I had a great time. I always love clowning with them and have fun. And what I'm trying to share with the kids is the wonder, the magic, of juggling, I have my props that I take in there, my puppets. You enter into the world of imagination and exploration. It's very exciting. And I never know what I'm going to do from one moment, because I don't actually have a patter. I just make it up as I go, and I blow balloons and let them go. Ultimately, we're entering into the space of play, and that's a very free-flowing, creative space that the children enter very easily because they're into play, and they're my teachers in that. And this man, he ended up giving me a card for fishing, boating and camping, and I saw that as a sign, because I was contemplating going around Australia, but I didn't have the money for a tent or anything. And what he gave me was the money for a tent and an inverter and gas bottle. And I took that as a sign, I'm to go. He said, I want you to help the children. He said, go around Australia, do it. So I did. I just programmed the GPS and off I went. Now that trip was one of great peace and joy, as I got to explore my own country, which is vast, Australia's ancient land. And I marvelled at the Indigenous people who survived here for 50,000 years plus, and how incredible their knowledge must have been. And I went and visited the little towns, and I met lots of people on my journey. It was incredible. I remember filming out the window, driving. Car was filled to the rafters. Every night I had to unpack my tent. Everything was really tight in there. It was hard work, and I admired men. I remember that. I had a great admiration for men and what they do. But that trip was really about connecting with lots of diverse people on that journey. I clowned in schools for free or by donation. I taught sustainability. I had a session in the, I guess you'd call it the outback. Yes, it was 300 kilometres east of Tennant Creek. I went and clowned with Indigenous children who were in a little community. And they did look me in the eye, the elders, because I was a clown. Not supposed to look in the eye, but they did. And the kids were great. They were all ages, and we had a lot of fun together. There's a wonderful photo actually on my gallery. I've got blogs you can check out on my website, which is www.worldpeacefull.com, and that's Worldpeacefull, F-U-L-L. I have to reinstate some photos because I noticed Picasso has changed, and I now have to reconnect the Google photos, which I'll do in due course so people can see. But there's one wonderful photo of an Indigenous child looking at the world with a jester's hat on. I saw that as very symbolic. You know, the idea of the fool, people see someone as a fool, you know, they haven't got anything or they're foolish. But the fool is actually the wise fool. Fool, I often describe the fool as real hope. And real hope's an acronym for responsibility, empathy, awareness, love, honesty, oneness, peace, enjoyment, and service. I've described, and I'll actually put a link to this video of the Fool's Journey that I wrote. That was inspired. We are to step out of our certainty into uncertainty. The Fool's Journey is stepping off the cliff, and it looks like you're stepping into thin air, but you're actually not. There is a certainty in life. And I've had to learn that because I've had so much uncertainty. I've been homeless for many years, travelled the world in uncertainty. I was travelling alone, travelling Australia in uncertainty. I had no idea where I was staying. I had to go for the cheapest places. I had to just make it up as I went. And I'm a truth speaker, so I do speak the truth to people. I'm not one who's self-righteous in the sense that my truth is the only way. It's not. I can only speak out of what I understand. I am very mindful there's other truths that I don't know. I learnt the wisdom of I know that I don't know. So I don't presume everybody should be doing it my way, which renders me more peaceful in the presence of others. I don't see anyone as an enemy. I see all as teachers. I speak up and say what I feel is important on the basis of assisting others. I could be wrong in what I say, but I'm coming at it from an authentic place, and that's love in action. When you truly love, you have to speak up, because to stay silent would be to not love the others as yourself. And there's not an ego associated with loving others as yourself. We tend to operate out of self-interest. If we could love others in the same way, what we give to ourselves, we give to another. What you give to another, you give to the self. To seek to speak the truth in ways that are gentle and honest and authentic is the highest love, which is why I do my blogs. I'm not against anything. Even though some may perceive the critique as against, it's actually not. It's seeking to provide another perspective that may not have been considered, because we're not sitting in front of each other dialoguing, which would naturally occur if we were in true community. When we live in separated islands or atomized worlds, we aren't able to hear the voice of others because we have surrounded ourselves with voices that reinforce what we believe to feel good. What I'm doing by walking alone as the fool is speaking up where I feel inspired to do so in order to introduce other ways of seeing that others may not have considered. It's out of great love that I do that. So the Fool's Journey is responsibility. You have the ability to respond. You can do something. That's why I created Worldpeacefull and Happiness Australia and Worldpeacefull Empowerment. These three areas, Worldpeacefull is the vision of a peaceful world for children, which was what started me. I mean, I dreamed I was teaching peace in 1998. That's actually where I started, to be honest. I was working as a market analyst prior to that. I literally had this dream. And then information came to me quite spontaneously, unexpectedly, which enlightened me to other ways of understanding this higher intelligence. I always believed in the love. Others see the dark side. I don't. I know it's there, but and all I see in respect of that so-called contrast is the absence of love. If you can't feel the love, you can't feel the love, and who am I to condemn you? I feel for you because I realise you don't know what I know. I have to. It's not even a have to. Love just is what it is. It accepts all. It has to, because all of it are aspects of the one thing, which is that infinite intelligence. It's created everything. It's created the trees. I mean, human beings didn't create any of this, so whatever you want to call it, even the labelling of it is not accurate. We didn't create the soils. We didn't create the oceans. We didn't create the amoeba. We didn't create the atmosphere, nor did we produce the oxygen or the clouds. We didn't know how to engineer the clouds. The trees, the forests, the wildlife, none of us created any of that. Therefore, it was here prior to us. The humility is in knowing that. That is the infinite intelligence of which I speak. And any scientist who looks into the genetic makeup of that can see very clearly that it's a brilliant design. It's homeostasis. I spoke of peace as balance. That's homeostasis. Homeostasis is a biological term which talks about the planet finding equilibrium, or where it's equal. So it oscillates like us emotionally. We have the emotions from unconditional love to hatred. If we want to look at that as a rocky, a smooth sea to a rocky sea. Nature also has the oscillations through temperature, through rain, through seasons. It's in constant transformation. But it has genetic signals that are evoked by change. So it automatically changes. The leaves fall off the tree at the right time because they're coded with that knowledge of when to fall. Those leaves go into the soil, break down, that creates a nutrient in the soil. This is love. This is a system of love that feeds all the system. The sum of the parts is the whole. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts in actual fact. It's sensing every single aspect of that system and providing the exact thing that it needs. And that's what love does. It takes nothing. There's no cost. This is not metered. There's no cost on this. Nature gives for free because it sees itself as the one thing. You can look at that as the earth, as the one living system. And the earth is indeed a living system. Indigenous people know that it is alive. That is why they honour this life force which has given them life. That's a deep awareness and respect that all has been provided out of love. That's why the spirituality is really about love. It's not a thinking thing, it's a feeling thing. Feeling is where the true higher awareness comes from. That's why as a clown, I felt unconditional love for everyone. I had to feel it. I can't speak it. I can't analyze unconditional love. I can't preach it. I can only feel it in the moment with you, that I love you no matter what you choose. Although I will speak truth to you as I see it, bearing in mind I could be wrong. And you could turn around and say, I don't agree, and I could then accept that. You're not my enemy because you don't agree. You're seeing differently, and if I'm wise, I will honour that. I may be wrong, is my humility. That would be where I come back to. I could be wrong, maybe they're right. So it's not about me fighting and forcing them to agree with me. It's about myself reclining into a peaceful state of being and saying, they could be right. Now, having said that, I've had moments where I've been angry at someone and I've yelled and carried on. That's an old pattern that's popped up. But later on, I always know I come back to the still point within. And then I reassess, and I try to, a little bit like spiral, I try to work my way growing as a human being. So I made a mistake. Okay, let's grow through that. What did I learn? Let's grow through that. What did I learn? Let's grow through that. Don't pull yourself down and say, well, I failed and I'm never going to achieve anything. Work through the problems. Work your way through them. So, okay, life has sent me this. What am I learning about me? I feel negative. That means I'm out of alignment with what's true. How do I know that that negativity is not true? Because only love is real. I'm in judgment. I'm believing the security comes from what I've thought. How do I know the whole picture? I don't. I only know my own small perspective as I look upon that world picture. But we don't know the purpose of a person's life. They may well be playing out a role that's quite negative, but it may well evoke the positive in others. So they may have played a very important role. What came out of Hitler's rule, the Universal Declarations of Human Rights? Peace movement emerged from the military because people didn't want to see people hurting each other. They wanted them to love each other. They wanted them conflict resolution came out of militarism as well. Came out of recognition that people were not sitting down and actually meeting in the middle. They were not sitting down and dialoguing and resolving conflict. Because when people think they're right, they don't like being challenged. But if we're going to solve the problem, we have to be prepared to meet in the middle with someone who is our polar opposite. Same applies today with the Chinese, the Russians and the Americans, and in various other parts of the world where there's conflicts going on between various ethnic groups, religious groups. Whatever that difference is, these experiences have been sent to you to put to you the proposition, are you going to resolve the conflict or are you going to create a war here? That war will be continuous because you haven't solved the essential problem of that conflict. And that's because you're not prepared to look at you. That's why we say in conflict resolution, if you're saying you're to blame, you're wrong, there's fingers pointing back. We always say that. That's to remind people that there's 3 fingers pointing back at you, that you have not looked into your own discomfort, your own error. And that might come from, you are causing me a problem. Well, it only becomes a problem if I believe that it shouldn't be happening. What if I was to flow with that problem and say, okay, it's causing me discomfort. What is it within me that feels discomfort? What am I feeling? Fear, because that discomfort is fear. What is that fear coming from? If fear is not real, false evidence appearing real, well, then I'm believing something that is untrue because it feels negative within me. When it is true, and I'm talking a higher truth here. I'm not talking factual truth. I'm not talking intellectual truth. I'm talking about higher truth that goes beyond human concepts. When I'm in harmony with myself, then I'm in harmony with you because I'm not needing anything from you. The love I feel is already there for me because I've accepted. What did they say? Love the unlovable. I'm accepting myself for who I am, and therefore I can accept you then for who you are. And that's not to say we don't sit with discomfort for a while. We might, until we can work through what the problem is that we're frightened of. Sometimes they're unconscious. Carl Jung talked about the collective unconscious. We may be driven by impulses that we don't understand, which is quite likely. We may get caught up in groupthink or the mob mentality, where we all come together and as a group we feel a sense of security and then we attack another, feeling confident we can. That's a sort of a mob mentality. Bullying tends to reflect that behaviour. it's called glee clubs in bullying, when people come around and they attack someone because they seem weaker or more vulnerable. And what this really is the need for power. Powerlessness is what creates in the bully the desire to take your power. And that might come in the form of putting you down, giving you no choices, threatening you, putting power over you, ganging up on you, creating a very negative consequence for you if you don't do as I say. This is the form of authoritarianism. Powerlessness in the subject or the target can manifest as I'm vulnerable, I can be hurt, I'm frightened, I'm terrified. If I don't do this, I'll be out on the street. All these fears arise. Now, the work of Byron Katie is a very important, you'd call it a process. It's a process of inner inquiry. You know, is it true? Can you be absolutely sure it's true? How do you feel? How do you react when you believe the thought? If you're able to look at that thing that you fear without any story, what do you see? Can you turn it around to the opposite, to the other, to yourself? They're called the turnarounds in the work. Essentially, what she's teaching the world is to question for truth. And what typically can happen is that we're projecting, not typically, always, we're projecting our negative, unowned issues onto others. And then we say, you are a this. And we get everyone else on board with that. We might have propaganda going on out there to make everyone hate that other. The moment you see division, you can be sure it's a projection. The hard part for people, if they truly want peace, is they have to look at themselves, not the other. Me too. I put myself at the centre of that. I still got to do the work myself properly, you know, because I'm still believing unquestioned thoughts as well. We all are. But until we make a final decision, I want peace. I truly want peace. Then the hard work starts, which is to make peace with yourself over everything you've believed is true that you have fought in this life. I talked about fighting against life. It always is painful when we fight truth. There is a universal truth here that came before us, and it is of cosmic origins. The whole universe is balancing. Look at the sun, and you've got the planets revolving around the sun. We can clearly see that there's an order. There's gravity, gravitational pulls. There's the light coming from the sun and the life-producing quality of that. How plants have DNA within them. They have a blueprint. There's a blueprint, not only within plants, animals, human beings, the earth, the universe, and the multiple verses beyond that. That's why they call it the one song. The one song is this harmony that the mystics have tapped into. And those mystics have been in every tradition. These are the ones that feel it directly. The one song is a love song. And that love song is singing to everyone today. Thing is, are you hearing it? You may hear it when you look into the eyes of your child, when you see them laughing. You may hear it when you look into the eyes of your lover and you're falling in love. That love is that higher intelligence within you connecting. This is the true interconnectivity on the planet. This is the sense of grace. So I'm going to leave you with peace and love as the highest state of grace. And when you experience it, you can never look back. You can never hate anyone, ever. Because you know it's only unresolved stuff within yourself that creates that division. So these so-called end times are about ending the division. They're about resurfacing what we have suppressed. It is about owning where we have not been honest with ourselves. It is about making a decision of whether you're going to live in unconditional love or whether you're going to live in hatred and fear. So we're seeing a sifting and a sorting happening. But what I can honestly say from what I know is that everybody is truly loved. And that from every ending there is a new beginning. Perhaps this is the last story that we've told ourselves in our innocence. Everyone is innocent. In this unconditional loving reality, there is no punishment. There is no guilt. There is only life being experienced. And when we flow with that experience, we do return to what is perceived as home, which is that state of grace. I can hear that song. Amazing grace, how sweet thou art. La, 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 la. Oh, I can't get the high notes. My voice is a bit... I'm going to try though. Amazing grace, how sweet thou art. La la la, la 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 la, la la, la 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 la. I'm hearing the words, and now I'm found. I was lost, and now I'm found. That is the grace I'm talking about. That's home. I hope you find your way home. Take care. Bye.